and welcome to the Creative Career Change podcast with me, Hannah Ash. I make my living working simultaneously as a music teacher, an interior designer, a writer, a podcaster, and more. You can read more about me and my work on Substack. Visit shayhanny.substack.com. That's Shayhanny spelled Chezhanny. Today, I have the pleasure of talking to Irene Ruby about her journey from corporate life to artist. Ren, so welcome to the Creative Career Change podcast. Please could you begin by introducing yourselves to the listeners?
Yes, of course. And thank you so much for having me today. It's really lovely to speak to you again, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So my name is Irene, or Ren, and I am from the Netherlands originally. I live in the UK, and I run a business where I teach art courses and workshops to people from all over the world. And my business has developed quite a lot over the last few years. Like I'm doing something completely different than what I thought I would be doing sort of 3 years ago. And I'm sure we'll get a bit more into that in a little bit. But what I'm doing now is mostly my creative community. So I have members who I paint and I draw with every week. So it's all about creativity and painting and drawing and sketchbooking. And then I create online courses that people can buy and join in. And I also do some in-person classes, but that's quite a small part of how I make my living.
Amazing. So can you maybe talk to us a little bit about your original career or where you've started off in your working life, and maybe take us through the journey of how you've kind of come to this point now and doing what you're doing?
Yes, it was not a straight path for me. And I think this is the case with a lot of people that you speak to, because I definitely had a career change. I studied law originally, and I was always creative. Like before, as a kid, I went to a Steiner school. I used to, like, for people who don't know, it's a very creative sort of education. And then after my high school, I applied to art uni twice, got rejected twice, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to just go for something that feels more secure and for something that I know. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but people say if you study law, you will always find a job. So I thought, okay, that seems sensible. I liked sort of politics, and I thought this is something I can do something good for the world as a lawyer, or like environmentalist or human rights or things like that was sort of what I had in mind. So I started to study law. And then years later, after I finished my studies, I moved to England. That's a whole other story in itself. And I started to work in insurance. And it's not like I was looking for a job in insurance. I was just so happy that I found a job, moving to another country and find something. And I really enjoyed it for a while. Like it was definitely an interesting like career for me. There was lots of travel. I met loads of people. There was a lot of going out and entertaining clients, and yeah, it was quite. I felt like it was quite glamorous at time. Like I had this really beautiful office, and like in the center of London, and it was just really there was parts of it that I really enjoyed. But then after a while, I started to realize that this wasn't really what I wanted to be doing long term. And some of my colleagues, they had been in that industry for 20, 30 years, spending their entire career in that industry. And I just realized that that was not what I wanted to do. And I started to think, okay, if I don't want to do this for the next 20 years, do I want to do it for 10 years? I was like, no, not really. And then I started to think, okay, how long do I want to do this for? And then I thought, okay, maybe for another year, maybe 2 years if I really sort of have to. And when I came to that realization, I thought, I really need to start thinking of what I want to do instead. And I started to build a business plan, and I started to think about the things that I loved. And there's a little bit more of a story behind that, but I started to think about this and save up money and come up with an exit plan. And then, about a year later, I left that job and started my own business, Makings and Musings.
Yeah, I'm really interested in, if you don't mind sharing some details of that exit plan, because I think lots of the listeners to this could be in a situation where they are contemplating a career change. And I think we maybe both know from the perspective of being the person wanting to make that change, that sometimes that feels like such an enormous thing to do. And it's the breaking it down and having a plan that starts to make that a reality. So if you don't mind sharing some of the things that you did to prepare for that, I think that would be very helpful.
So I started to write a business plan, which, if I look at it now, was so amateuristic. Like none of what I actually wrote down in that came true, but just starting to think about how am I going to approach this? What am I going to do? What services am I going to offer, or what products, or what? So that really started to help to actually visualize it for myself and write it all out as well. So I spent quite a bit of time doing that. And then also just saving up money. That was
Mm,
a huge thing for me. And so to know that I had that security behind me, and I'm very like privileged and lucky as well, that I have a good safety net in other ways as well. Like I live with a partner, my partner has a job. I have a loving family. If everything would fall apart, I could always move back in with my mom. Like but my partner supported me as well. I didn't have any children that I had to pay for or look after. So I was quite flexible in terms of like scaling back as well and, leaving, um, yeah, just a much sort of cheaper lifestyle. I don't really know what the
yeah.
right word for it is, much
Yeah,
more
yeah.
frugal. So I could just, yeah, really scale back without that sort of affecting big things in my life. And I just made sure that I had enough sort of savings to cover me for at least like 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that quite a lot actually, and I did a similar thing, but I see people say 6 months is kind of a good amount of, well, time to have the money to be able to manage on for that period if you
Mm.
absolutely needed to. And I think that is quite a kind of good figure to kind of have in your mind. How long were you making these preparations for whilst you were still working in your job?
So I think for about a year, but I wasn't like completely ready sort of for a whole year. It's not like, oh, in a year's time I'm going to leave and this is what I'm working towards. It's more that I know that like in so my grandmother passed away in 2018.
Okay.
And I left my job in the summer of 2019. So that was sort of roughly a year, maybe a year and a half of that period. And the passing away of my grandmother was a really difficult time for me because I was going through a lot of grief. And she was very old. She was in her 90s, and she um, yeah, like she lived a really good life, but still, I was really um, struggling with that, and that grief hit me much harder than I thought it would. And my grandmother was an artist, so she had lots of art materials at home, and her house was full of paintings. And when she passed away, I took her art materials. So, you divide people's belongings, and no one really wanted to have them. So I thought, you know what, I'll take them back home to England. And yeah, when I was back here, I started to paint with them, and it made me feel so good, and it really helped me sort of process that grief. And that's sort of where I realized that I wanted to spread that feeling of calm and sort of mindfulness for art with other people. And that's sort of where the idea started brewing of doing what I do now. And yeah, it wasn't like, oh, from that moment I actively sort of worked towards leaving my job, but that's sort of where the seed was planted. And then
Yeah.
yeah, slowly and steadily it started happening. And also at some point I started to already teach some art classes whilst I was still employed. So like on Monday nights I could use a pub local to me, and they were very kind that I could use a room there for free, so it didn't cost me anything. That was absolute. That made such a big difference because I didn't, have any money coming in from that yet. And yeah, I just started to teach on Monday nights. And at first, it was just friends who came, enjoyed my classes. And then I started to sell some tickets. Sort of, I put them up on Eventbrite and a few other places. And then I started to sell some tickets to strangers, like to people that I didn't know. And then slowly from there, yeah, those classes got busier. And but that was even before I left my job. I did that sort of after work on Monday night.
But that must have given you some confidence as well in what you were planning to do, that as that was steadily building up, and like you say, people who you didn't know were signing up to these classes, that's a really good confidence booster that, if once you eventually do leave your job, there is a market for what you're offering, I guess.
Hmm. It was. I think I was also a bit delusional. In like, but not, it's not necessarily a bad thing because I think you need to sort of dream big and think. You sort of need to think that things are going to be easier than they actually are. And I just thought, oh, you just, you plan a few events, post them online on Facebook and on other places, and then people will just keep come streaming in. And it wasn't quite like that. There was quite a lot of like grafting and going around. And I used to go door to door, bring flyers to lots of local businesses to like literally just go like the old-fashioned way, putting flyers for people's doors. And yeah, that worked as well. So I got like there was a lot of hard work involved to started to get the ball rolling, but um, yeah.
Yeah. So you left your sort of corporate job in 2019, is that
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that was, now that we can look back on this, that was the year before the whole world and certainly the UK went into lockdown.
Yeah.
So how did that have an impact on your new business venture, which you
Mm.
really were in, was in very much its infancy, and then suddenly the world changed. So how did that impact it?
Oh, it was a huge thing. Like it's if you think back of it now, it seems like a lifetime ago. But yeah, it was sort of the summer of 2019. I just quit my job. I was going around flyering like through different businesses. I started to teach classes on Monday and I rented this location on Wednesday. So I had two classes a week. And I was really trying to do more corporate events as well, so team building and like wellness sort of team things. And that was going quite well. I started to get some bookings in and stuff. And then suddenly, well, everything was closed and the whole world was in lockdown. And um, I did nothing online at that time. Well, I had an Instagram account that I just started, but that's it. Like I wasn't an online person. And I within a week, also as a way to distract myself from all that fear and anxiety and everything happening in the world, I just read up on how to teach online. Within a week, I had a Zoom account, I had a camera set up, I had a whole sort of home studio, very yeah, not very professional in the slightest, but I had everything set up and I started to teach online, like literally within the first week of the pandemic happening. And that was like it's sort of changed my business completely because from that moment I started to teach people from all over the world. So people started to join in from America a lot, from all over Europe. I've had people join from India and from Greenland and from Australia, and sometimes and from that moment I've sort of stayed online. So I'm doing a lot of things online still. And I think that if I'd stayed if everything had kept to be sort of as the way I planned it and doing everything in person, my business would have looked completely different. But I also wouldn't have been able to reach all those people. So in a way, it was quite a positive thing for me. And I built my little community, and we were doing at some point I was doing like 8 or 10 online classes a week, and no one could go anywhere. So all these classes were relatively busy, and it was going well. And then, yeah, when the world started to open up a bit more again, I started to think, well, do I still want to do this many online events every week? And if I want to scale up and I want to start making more money, I can either do it by offering more classes every week. So instead of doing 8 or 10 a week, I'll do 20 a week. But that means you can't leave the house and you're just constantly behind the computer teaching, or I can start offering a slightly different service. So that's when I started to think about courses and my community as well. So yeah, more scalable events, and that's yeah how my current form, what I'm doing now, is started.
Yes, it's very interesting, isn't it? Because what at the time was probably a bit of a panic of, oh goodness, this is shifting in a way that nobody could have predicted. But I think you're not alone in actually having some positive outcomes in the mode of working. And I mean, you say you set up your studio and it wasn't very professional, but I don't think anybody had a very professional setup at that time in March 2020. It was, I was at that time still in my teaching job. So I was head of music in a school. And the big challenge for lots of the people that I managed in my department, because there was a big team of visiting music teachers who taught the one-to-one, music lessons. And initially, they were all in obviously great panic about, well, how are we going to do that? Because they were self-employed, and nobody had ever really done much in the way of online teaching. And they were very much the same, that like suddenly within a week, 2 weeks of this all happening, people had these cameras set up and they were just figuring it out as they went along. But actually, that now is teaching music online is still something that continues very much for lots of those people. And it offers this different kind of income stream. And as you say, you're able to reach people in parts of the world that you would never have even imagined, I guess, that would be coming and doing your art classes. So that's a good
In a
thing, I
way,
reckon.
it was sort of a blessing for me because one, it was something for me to focus on. And I had this lovely community of people, and we sort of kept each other sane in that period. Because for me, it was
Yeah.
also, well, not therapeutic, but it sort of was in a way. And for people, they were all scared and they came to my classes and they had a moment of calm. And for me, it was also something to focus on and to distract me from what was going on. So and also but you say like no one really knew what they were doing, so it was a really good time for me to learn. And all these mistakes that I made in the beginning, if I see some of those videos, the quality was so poor or my setup was really wonky, and now I've got it much more figured out. But you need to go through a learning phase to figure this out. Whether you do business online or in person, your first few trials are always going to be like it's like the first pancake you make. If you make a stack of pancake, like you need to work on this to become more professional. And yeah, that the whole sort of pandemic allowed me to practice in an environment where everyone else was practicing. So it was okay that it was a little bit messy and a bit, yeah. So I think in a way it was sort of a blessing for me and for my business as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you talk us through what a workshop, online workshop, looks like with you?
Yeah, sure. So within my community, I have an online platform so people can log in, they can watch all the recordings of previous classes there, and they can talk to each other and they can share the artwork that they made, and then people can see each other's artwork as well and comment on it. It's a bit like a little like intimate social media, like Facebook sort of page, but only for people who are members. And we and then every Thursday evening, well, UK time evening, I host a Zoom class, so lots of people join in, and then we paint together live. But there's also people who cannot make that, and then they watch the recordings. And yeah, every week I pick like a different topic. So every month has a theme. So we're now in July. My theme is places and spaces. So it's all about travel and holidays and taking your art materials with you when you go on holiday as well. And like there's a bit of a theme sort of related to the summer, but every month has a different theme. And then within that theme, I pick different topics. So there's always a really calm, sort of mindful session every month that has very that's quite easy to join in, and it's much more intuitive and just about creating shapes and not necessarily about drawing realistically. And then I tend to put in a watercolor session that is a bit more like skills sort of focused. I often do a mixed media session where you can just literally use any art material that you have. And often it's a color pencil color, like a drawing session. But I do switch it up a little bit sometimes, depending on the theme or on what I fancy using as well. So it's not always the same materials, but I always offer like change ways to adapt it so you can join in if you have slightly different materials. And I'm a big believer in using what you have first before you go out and buy lots of new things. And then my courses, for example, now I've just launched a course on Wednesday where we are painting wonky houses. And I started that course just because I love doing that myself. I was in buses and trains and like traveling myself, and I wanted to do something that I could draw in the bus because yeah, it's always so wobbly and it's you can't draw any straight lines. And I didn't really want to draw the people around me because you're a bit self-conscious, and I just wanted to draw something that I didn't need a reference photo of. So I started to create these wonky, wobbly houses, and I filled the whole sketchbook and I started to share them online a bit, and people really loved it. So I thought, you know what, I'll make a course out of it of how I developed this technique. And yeah, there's lots of people who are sort of joining as we speak, starting to do their first drawings, and they share it in a group, and then we can all see it. It's yeah, so it's really fun. The community part is it's really fun part of what I do.
And so with that course, do you teach, that's like live taught every week for a period of time?
No, for my courses, it's all pre-recorded.
Ah, I
You
see.
can watch it in
Okay.
your own times, but sometimes it depends. Like sometimes I include like an extra live session, or after a while, if lots of people have completed the course, I do a live session. It's more as a bonus rather than the main thing.
And I guess from your own sort of work point of view, having that balance of the live classes and the courses is good
Mm.
for your kind of time management because, like you said, it, you can scale up teaching classes, but there's a limit as one human running your business as to how many physical classes you can manage to teach. That you want to be able to teach in a week while still maintaining all the other things in your life. So I guess have the courses provided you with sort of a different way of earning an income?
It really has, and I'm quite at a sort of pivotal moment actually at the moment whilst we speak, which is so I recently started to invest lots in advertising and in marketing, and I've sort of employed like someone freelance, but I can't dream of actually employing anyone properly. But I'm working with my first freelancer who's sort of helping me shoot lots of content and take photos and videos of me once or twice a month, which is really fantastic. And I'm investing in lots of marketing, so I'm running lots of advertising on like Facebook and Meta, Instagram. Um, and yeah, I'm really hoping to that will help me scale up because I'm like sort of if you can do like organic scaling up, but it's quite a lot of work where you have to keep putting out everything sort of yourself on all these different social media platforms, you know, like LinkedIn and X. I don't really use Twitter or X, but like all these different places, you just keep sort of approaching people or you run ads. So that's quite new to me. So that means that I've taken quite a big cut in how much I pay myself for the last few months, and then investing that in advertising.
And that's quite as you say, quite a pivotal point in any small business, isn't it? Especially when you're a sole it was just you running it, that decision when you get to that point of going, I am now going to invest some of the money that I'm earning back into the business, whether it's advertising or platforms or investing in software or whatever technology. But that's quite difficult sort of decision to make, isn't it? What brought you to that decision? What was the kind of realization that made you think, I'm going to do that now?
Well, because I make a relatively steady income with what I do now, but it's not quite enough for me yet. Like I would like to grow a bit more. So also so I can save more for my pension and for things, you know, for if things go wrong in the future and you know, life slowly gets more expensive. So I want to have a little bit more security financially. And yeah, there's just different ways of going about it. And also I have a few other friends who run businesses and they have, for example, a physical shop where their expenses are so much higher than mine. And then it makes me realize actually the amount that I'm investing is still like quite minimal in comparison. So that does takes the pressure off a little bit. But yeah, it is quite scary. But before I sort of agreed to do it, because I'm quite happy to share that I'm paying about £1,000 a month in advertising, which for me is quite like it's a big like either paying myself an extra £1,000 a month or putting it in ads was a
Yeah.
big change. So I was definitely a bit nervous when I signed that contract. I'm like, yes, I'm committed to this. Let's go do it.
Well, thank you for sharing that figure as well, because I do know that people find it very useful and helpful to, we can talk about these things a lot, but actually sometimes hearing some of the actual figures and what you are spending on that is really helpful to know. But I guess with these things, we don't know what the returns will be until you give it a try, do you?
No, you don't. You don't. And it's also good to sort of set yourself a limit sometimes where you think, oh, I'm going to invest a certain amount of money and this is how much I'm willing to spend on it. And then after that point, like at that point, I need to decide if I'm carrying on or not. Or like set some boundaries for yourself can make it feel a bit safer. So if you think, okay, even if I lose like £2,000 or 3,000, I know for some people that sounds like an enormous amount of money. But yeah, I feel like in my life, I can sort of be okay with losing that amount of money, and then, you know, it would suck, but I would sort of survive that and it'd be okay. And I think it's also something that my corporate career has really helped me sort of have a different perspective on money, because there's people in the world who make enormous amounts of money. I'm not even talking about millionaires, but like people who work in the city in London who easily make like 100 grand a year, and they don't even bet an eyelid to pay like £150 for a course. Or and some like this is something that I really had to learn as well, that it's okay to ask certain prices for your products and that it also sometimes okay if you wouldn't be willing to pay those prices yourself, because you're not your own client, you're not your own audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing different, like my community is really affordable. It's like £15 a month. So most people can afford that. That's for 4 classes. Like that's not like it's very affordable. But then some of my courses are like £200. So there's, and I still think that I could probably raise those prices a bit at some point. Yeah, so I'm sort of tailoring to different groups. But it's also okay to not be everything for everyone and to, yeah, and this is something that, yeah, I don't know, money is just a really interesting topic and a really,
It is.
um,
I totally
yeah.
agree. And I mean, everything, I'm nodding along to everything you're saying because I have a similar thing when I'm working out my pricings for some of my interior design services. And I think that what you've just said there was very important for me, which is that you said, I'm not my own client. And I think that is something we maybe have to remind ourselves from time to time that just because we might think that that's a lot of money for a particular thing, somebody else may not. And I guess, like, from your point of view, you know, you have the artistic and creative skills, so you wouldn't necessarily need somebody to teach you the things that you teach. But there are many people out there who really struggle to either have the motivation or don't have any skills in that area. So they need you to teach them that stuff and they will pay for it. And also, you know how it feels to have a busy corporate career where maybe it can be difficult to find the time to fit in these kinds of creative activities. And for some people, I'm sure that's a moment in their week that they really look forward to.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, so it's a good, I think it's a good way of kind of thinking about it like that. Um, You've touched on this a little bit, but I was going to ask you about transferable skills from your corporate career into what you do now. And you've kind of mentioned a little bit about money, but are there any other things that you would say, I really learnt or took this away from my corporate career and now I'm using it in my current role?
Um, oh, this is a hard question. Um, it's not something that I've thought about for a while. The, well, I think just general confidence, but I'm not sure because I've always been quite a confident person. I don't know if that's something that I got from my career, but there was definitely a lot of things where, like, I had to give presentations, for example, when I first moved, when I first started to work in the city. I had to give presentations, and that was very scary because of my accent. I was very self-conscious about this, and my English was definitely not as good as it is now because this is 10 years ago, 12 years ago now. And yeah, just to learn that it is okay to put yourself out there. People don't really mind an accent or if you make a little mistake as long as you get your point across. And nowadays, I'm a really confident public speaker, but that wasn't always the case. And I think that's definitely something that has helped a lot to, I had to do a lot of networking events. And just to be able to talk to anyone. And if you walk into a room, and sometimes it was like literally a room full of suits, of like middle-aged white men in suits. You can sort of imagine the environment, like
Yeah.
financial, sort of corporate. And sometimes I did think, I really don't fancy talking to this person. But then I always thought, you know what? As long as I can find one positive thing about this person, then I can start a conversation and then, appreciate that person a bit more, like look beyond the suit. And then everyone has something positive, even if you don't quite align politically or like everyone has one thing positive, even if it's something really small. Um, like
Yeah.
a love for their children or their uh, maybe they collect trains or like I don't know. There's always something that people are passionate about that you can sort of
Yeah.
enjoy. So
Oh, I think that's such a good way of thinking about it. And also good that you've been able to take that confidence that you've built and use it in the way that you're using it now. And like you say, just to have that realization over time, I think this comes with age to some extent as well, but that it's okay to put yourself out there, as you say, it's okay to be you in whatever form that is. And in many ways, people respect that even more when you are just when we are just our true selves, I
yeah,
think. But it does take time, doesn't it, to get to that point.
yeah. I think sort of authenticity is a bit of a buzzword, so you have to be a little bit careful with using that. But it's Yeah, it is true because people feel like if you try and copy someone else completely, like there are so many other artists who do brilliant courses, and if you like, we all do it in our own ways, and it's the same for you. Like there's so many interior designers,
Yeah.
everyone has different styles and slightly different things that they're doing, and sometimes when you look online, you can think, oh, this person is doing that. Should I be doing this? Or, oh, they are posting these sort of videos or this style and they're doing really well. So maybe I should do it like this. Or, and I think that is something that over time I had to learn to sort of not, maybe just not look at it so much anymore. Just let people do their thing and not sort of analyze too much what they are doing. And I just do my thing and just sort of let it go a bit. But also, like, it doesn't work to copy other people. I've tried sort of different things at times, and it's just no. Like, people feel that that's not really genuine, and yeah, it's better to just do your own thing and do it in your own way, and then people will resonate with that much more.
Yeah, I agree completely. I've got to the point really where I've stopped really looking too much at what other people who do similar things to me are doing or exactly how they're doing it. Because like you, I you kind of go down this sort of rabbit hole and it's hard to kind of get out of, climb your way out of it when you start comparing yourself. Because we're all different and we're all at different stages in our career. We all have different kind of professional kind of goals. What one person is seeking in their work is probably very different from another. All have different kind of family backgrounds, home situations, all of those kinds of things. And but it's hard because I think naturally as humans we do compare ourselves, we do look out of what's there. But yeah, I think it feels like a very positive step in when you get to that point of thinking, well, you know what, I'm confident in what I'm doing and I'm going to stick with it, and hopefully the right people will come, because that's a lot of it, isn't it? It's about finding the right people, not everybody, but
Yeah,
the right people in your community.
yeah. Also, because when I first started, I thought I was going to teach a lot of these like really young, hip, hardworking, like people who worked sort of in like similar sort of environments as where I used to work, who are really busy and they want to do something fun on like a Thursday night and they would go to a craft or an art event.
Mm.
But it turns out that is not really my crowd. My crowd is more like women who are a bit more homely, um, who are sort of our age or older. So I teach
Yeah.
a lot of people who are in their 50s or 60s. And also the people who I teach who are my age, they are just a bit more like quiet. They just I think as if I would typecast a little bit, just people who maybe a little bit more shy and they want to do art and they don't really want to go to a big drinking event on Thursday night. They just rather do arts at home. This is really stereotypical, of course, because I'm sure lots of people have very vibrant social lives. But just I just noticed that my crowd is not quite the people that I originally thought I was going to sort of resonate with. But actually it's okay because I really love like a lot of people that feel quite motherly towards me and they're very caring, and if I make a mistake, people are it's just such a lovely group of people, and that's um yeah, I think I prefer that much more than doing like after work boozy events. I can't like, and also like I when you see these like sip and drinks or drink and draw, like with prosecco and stuff, that's what I literally thought I was going to be doing. But if I think now that I had to go tonight, like on a Friday night, I'd have to go out into Cambridge with lots of booze and drunk people and then try and get them to paint. No, I don't think that's my. No, I much rather do like mindful, calm, like chilled
Yeah.
out session. So it's yeah.
But I guess it's partly because your knowledge of what's possible evolves over time. To start with, you were basing it on what like your maybe your position in your life at that point and maybe the people that you were around. But actually once you start spreading that net wider, it becomes a new way of doing it becomes kind of clearer, and your people come to you, they do, they find you. And I can also see how there's something quite nice about your doing some art but in your own space, but with some accountability of other people on the screen, um nearby, but also having all your own materials there. And I guess for some of your the people that come to your classes, they've been with you for a while and they have amassed quite a large collection of art materials, and they've got a space that they can kind of spread out and have all their things where they want them. Because I don't know, certainly for me, when I'm doing anything kind of creative, I like to have all my things in, like organized
Yeah.
in a particular way. And so that's quite a nice thing that you can do your classes or your courses in your own space, but still have that community kind of
Hmm.
around you, I guess.
And also because a lot of people come back every week, they start to get to know each other a bit more as well, and that's really lovely as well. So people who normally never spend time in the same rooms, they sort of get to know each other and they have a little chat online, and it's just really, yeah, it's really lovely.
Yeah, I think that's great. Um, is there anything about your corporate work that you miss?
Um, Not really. I thought about this earlier. Not really. I think it's really nice to have colleagues.
Mm,
Something that I miss at times. I don't miss having a manager. I love doing my own thing and setting my own hours and just like sometimes I work at really weird hours. I work a lot in the weekends, but I love taking time off during the week and just really setting my own schedule. So what I don't miss is, having to explain to someone else what you're doing and why you're doing it, where you're going to be, and oh, no,
yeah.
that's no, I love doing my own thing. But it's really nice to have colleagues that you can talk through things. Like if you have a problem or if you are a bit frustrated with how something is going, or just to have someone else who is on that same journey as you. And I sort of try and replicate that by having like a community of other people who I know have businesses that I have a studio space in Cambridge and there's lots of creatives there. So I have people there who are working on their own businesses, a bit different from mine, but it's nice to have
Yeah.
entrepreneurs around you. Um, Here in the town where I live in St. Neots, which is not far from Cambridge, but there is a really lovely creative community where there's meetups and it's a lot of artists and graphic designers, and we yeah, that's a really lovely place to sort of know other
Mm.
entrepreneurs as well, and especially people in the creative industries, which is really nice. Yeah, so I sort of try and replicate that myself. But sometimes you miss someone who works on your business with you to be like, actually, what should I do this next or that? Or is like, what's like, do I need this new camera? Or is it better for me to invest the money in this? Or like that sort of decisions. Because I can ask my partner, but he doesn't always. I don't really like his answers usually.
It's funny. I was just about to say, because I have the same thing that like our partners kind of they're helpful and they're the ones that we probably tell all these things a lot of the time. But sometimes I can see with my husband like his sort of zone, his eyes kind of glazing over, like, oh, you're talking about this very minute detail about something again. And actually, we do sometimes need somebody who really gets it in a different way, I guess. But
Yeah.
you said that you were working with someone for the first time on a freelance
Mhm.
basis. Have you found that there's a little bit of ability to discuss things with that person, or is it early days?
It's early days, but yeah, this is someone who I know from my studio already. So we were friends as well.
Mm,
And she's a photographer and a tour guide, and she does lots of storytelling and she runs her own workshops, very different from what I do. And yeah, I just asked if she wanted to help me with content creation, because sometimes I find that really hard. And also because social media moves so fast, and I'm just not really, yeah, I find it a bit hard sometimes. And my problem is not necessarily um, creating content, but creating the right content, because I have lots of video material and like photos of like things I do, but it's good to have videos where you show your own face and like yeah. So I've asked her to just help me taking lots of films of me, videos of me, and photos of me that I can then use for reels and stuff like that. And it does really help because she instantly had like, oh, do you know this trend? Oh, do you know this? Oh, we can make some things around this, or and then to just do it together and have a laugh. And yeah, I definitely think she might get more involved with things like this.
yeah,
So yeah,
that's really
that
good.
was really lovely to start doing that. And like working with someone like for a couple of hours a month is not as expensive as you think it is. Um, Depends a bit on what you do. Like you can hire people for all sorts of things in your business, but just to if there's something that you struggle with, whether that is your finances or like administration or like social media or things like you can hire a freelancer for 2 hours a month and they can get quite a lot done. And if that saves you a lot of stress,
Yeah,
it's
I think that's great advice because um especially social media, as you say, sometimes just having somebody else's perspective on because we can sometimes be looking at these videos, these photos, this content, our own content, with the same eyes each time. And it can be hard to find a different angle on it, or a different approach. And actually, sometimes just having somebody external to look at it with their own view on it, you suddenly get a different perspective. And so yeah, I can totally see the benefit of that. You get me thinking about, because I find I'm very on and off with social media. I kind of go through waves of being quite into it and taking loads of content and making stuff, and then I just lose all my energy for it, and I
Yeah.
just think, oh, I can't be bothered.
Yeah. Um, if you don't mind me plugging someone else,
Yeah, please
I'm doing
do.
a course at the moment which is called Your Best 90 Days Ever, and it's by a woman called Hannah Ashe. And sorry, Hannah is that?
As I say, that's me.
I'm mixing up my Hannahs. Yes, not you, different Hannah. But yeah, so and she wrote a book as well, The Best 90 Days Ever. So she does
Okay.
marketing, but she does a lot of like 10-minute marketing tasks for each day. So I've started to do that since January, and that's been really helpful. So it just gives you like a little prompt every day, something you can do in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
simplify things.
Okay, I'll look that up and I'll add it into the show notes as well. That sounds really good.
That's one that I've been really enjoying because I do find it gets a bit overwhelming sometimes, and I don't want to spend like 3 hours a day on my marketing. I really
No,
don't.
no,
Uh,
absolutely. In fact, that leads me very nicely onto the next question, which is, and I'm certain I know the answer, but has this career change enabled you to live a more creative life?
yes, it has. Is the short answer.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a little bit of an open door because my job is so creative, and
Yes.
so, but also in terms of like other than just drawing and painting, just um, giving me the flexibility to do things that I want to do in my life, like things that have my own priorities. So like what I said earlier is like setting my own schedule. One of the things I really didn't like about my corporate job was how I was stuck indoors looking at a computer screen like during daylight hours. And then you come home, especially in the winter, you leave the house when it's dark, sit in an office all day in this artificial light, look at a screen all day, and then you come home in the evening, it's already dark. And you just feel like you spent all of your daylight hours in this office. And I just really resented that. And now I take time off during the day, go for a run or go do, I don't know, whatever I want to do, go for a walk, like go for coffee with a friend. And then like I work a bit longer in the evening, for example. And I have that flexibility to make those changes the way they suit me and the way I want to lead my life. Um, and I know that that's a different kind of creativity, but it's,
I totally agree with you, because everything you've just said there were the reasons why I had to get out of my old job. And I didn't, it wasn't necessarily a corporate job, and I wasn't working in an office, but I was having to go to a workplace every day. And like you, I actually felt resentful about not seeing my house in daylight during certain parts of the winter, apart from at weekends. And then it felt like everything, you've got to cram everything into the weekends. So I actually think that what you're saying really is about creativity, because in a way, it's hard to be creative if you don't feel like you've got the
mm,
headspace
yeah,
to do it. And I think creativity isn't just about sort of painting or drawing or writing or whatever. It's actually a kind of way of being,
mm,
to some extent. It's quite hard to put that into words, I think, but
no, I agree.
that's kind of, yeah.
I think this is quite philosophical. I think creativity is what makes us human. It is
Mm,
our ability to tell stories and to dance and to sing and to express ourselves and to feel these strong emotions through like music or feel like
mm.
I don't think a dog, for example, like dogs have also a wide range of emotion, but they don't look at a painting, I think, and then feel an emotion the way that we do. And yeah, I think that's what creativity is. It's like, and also when people say they're not creative, I just don't believe it. I'm not buying it. Everyone, like, you might not have specific skills.
Yeah,
Like storytelling is a skill, painting is a skill, creative writing is a skill. But you can practice those skills and get better at them if that's something you want to do. But that doesn't mean that you're not creative. It just means that you don't have those specific skills yet.
yeah. I agree. And I think sometimes the kind of work schedule restrictions can not foster that kind of way of thinking
Mm,
in the same way. Yeah, for me, definitely, I slightly equate creativity with the sense of freedom.
mm,
And obviously, I mean, I'd love to be completely free from work of all, but as we all would maybe, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. Um, but I think just carving out those bits of time or having a schedule that you can make work for you
mm.
can be quite creatively freeing for some of us, maybe.
I think I would like to have a little bit. We spoke about money already a little bit. I like to
Mm,
have a bit more financial freedom, just to take the pressure off and to allow me to do a bit more like traveling or
yeah.
and saving up for the future, like things like that that are just making my life like overall sort of easier. But other than that, I just like when you're in a corporate. When I was in a corporate job, you're there, say, 8 hours a day officially, although in practice you often work much longer,
Mm,
officially 8 hours a day. And it's not like if you need to do the tasks, it doesn't, there's no benefit to doing tasks really efficient or really fast. You just get more tasks. For me now, if I think, okay, I need to do my administration, so I need to do some filing like of my taxes, I want to make a painting, I'd like to go for a run, and I want to do some social media post and then film, I don't know, a class for a course. If I've got those things, 5 things to do in a day, then I'm going to do those taxes as quick as possible, tick them off, and then I can do something fun. Or like do it all in the morning and then have the afternoon off. But when you work for a corporate sort of thing, there's no benefit of thinking, you know what, I'll do it all quickly in the morning and then I don't have to do anything the rest of the day because there'll just be more tasks. So that's, yeah, I think that it also makes you more creative in, like talking about marketing. I can do 10 minutes of marketing or I can drag it out and spend 5 hours on it. There's a lot of benefit for me in doing it faster. So that makes you a more creative thinker as well. Of like, how can I improve these tasks or how can I make it more fun or how can I and it's quite fun. My partner asked me a few weeks ago if I would rather be an artist or a business owner. And I said I'd rather be an entrepreneur, business owner. I can't imagine being back employed again. I'm much like I thought, yeah. I think
yeah.
I'd quicker do a different kind of business than going back into employment.
Yeah. Well, once you get a taste of it and you feel like it works for you, I think it is very difficult to imagine what going back would be like. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
My final question, what one piece of advice would you give to somebody who is listening to this and thinking about leaving a corporate career and to make a creative career change?
I've got quite a lot of tips and advice of it. Um, I think the first thing is to just get started because it's all the little small steps that sort of add up in the end. And don't wait until you feel 100% ready to start something. I'm not saying like immediately quit your job before you're ready, but start doing like say you want to make a pottery business. I don't know. Like start doing pottery a lot. Start talking about pottery. Start taking photos of your pottery. Share that online. Like all those things, like these little things, even though it's not brilliant yet, or you still have lots to learn, start doing it and make lots as well,
Mm,
rather than just waiting and waiting and waiting until you feel completely ready. Like, or if you want to make a website to offer a service, just start that website, and then because you're going to change so much about. Like my website doesn't look at all like what it looked like when I first started, because it's a developing thing, and I'm sure that in 5 years it will look completely different again. And a lot of people they keep tweaking and trying to make it perfect before they publish it, and yeah, the perfection doesn't exist because your expectations shift as well as your skills. And then that idea, like what I think now is perfect, is very different from 5 years ago. And if I, yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
let go of that and just start things. And also, yeah, it's good to save up some money, have a bit of security. It's also okay to have a part-time job whilst you build your business. There's nothing wrong with that. It's absolutely it's not all or nothing. I think if that makes you, it's good for your mental health as well, not to have to worry about everything at
Yeah,
once.
definitely. And I think, I mean, because that's what I've done really is kept part time and gradually sort of easing it down. But
Hmm.
I think what I find is that having the part-time job gives me a little bit of that. You mentioned earlier missing being part of a team, and actually that part-time work gives me enough of that,
Hmm.
you know. And you're right, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think there's lots of different ways of doing it. And lots of people I've spoken to on these interviews have said very similar things. I think we often have this idea in our minds, don't we, that I'm leaving this thing and I'm going to go all in on this. But the reality is that you're
Yeah.
actually probably making life harder for yourself if you're expecting that to all kind of happen successfully immediately. Often there's a bit of crossover. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And things sort of go with peaks and troughs as well, because I did save up money, but I think it took quite an. I've been doing this for what is it, 19, 20, 25, 6 years now. I really
Mm.
have to think about that. My clearly not a numbers person. Yes, I've been doing this for 6 years now, but only since recent I feel like I'm actually starting to make enough money to like to thrive, so to say. Like
Yeah.
before, it was like some months it was more, some months it was less, or I got like a commission for some artwork, then suddenly for a few months I had more money, and then it was less again, and then um, only recently start feeling like it's much more sort of even and really going in the right direction. And that is quite stressful to have that period when it's not going well. And then I took another part-time job for a while. I only did it for about 6 months. I didn't
Mm.
like it at all. So I
No.
left as soon as I could again. Um, but yeah, you do what you need to do
Yeah.
to make it work. And yeah, that's just how it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
That's
know if there's
great.
really advice for people, but
No,
it's
I think it is. And I mean, you've kind of been in sharing your journey, that kind of is giving lots of tips of things that have worked for you. So
hmm,
I think there's been a huge amount of really valuable advice along the way. And Ren, thank you so much for chatting to me today. It's really nice to ask you the questions
hmm,
this time because, as I mentioned earlier, our previous meeting was me guesting on your podcast, and I'll put a link to that and your podcast and all of your courses and your website in the show notes so people can find your work and find you on Instagram, and all the other places that you inhabit on the internet. But thank you so much. It's been really interesting to chat to you.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really loved it. And it's really nice, as you say, to do like a follow. It's almost like a
Yeah.
follow-up, isn't it? So it's really nice to be asked the questions. And, yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really loved it.
That was Hannah Ash talking to Ren Ruby on the Creative Career Change podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode and aren't already subscribed, visit shayhanny.substack.com to sign up and receive new episodes direct to your inbox.